Hey guys, subscribe for daily content. And if you're shopping for gear, make sure you check out the description for the newest items at some of the very best online retailers. There's also links for some of the items that I personally recommend. Thanks! What's going on YouTube? Metal Complex here, and today I've got a really short little knife review slash knife overview to share with you guys. This is the new Civivi Nugz, N-U-G-Z. I'm assuming like chicken nugs. That's probably like a hot keyword or something. So that would be my guess as far as their goal there. Fine, whatever. Not the first company to do that. Thanks so much to Civivi for sending this in. It is available. I'll link it down in the description. You guys can check it out if you want to. So this is a super simple and fairly inexpensive knife. So it doesn't require a super duper complex review. So it shouldn't take too long. Overall length of the Civivi Nugz coming in at about 7.5 inches. Blade length is coming in at 3 1/4. Cutting edge is coming in at just about 3 1/8. How about some size comparisons? Any custom scales you find in this section can be found down in the description under Original Goat and Others. Where is my AD20? I have absolutely no idea. Filling in for the AD20 today will be the Ontario Rat Model 1. Or I'm sorry, the AD20.5. So here you go up against these two. You can see it's about a medium-sized knife is what I would call it. Up against the Spyderco PM2 and the Spyderco Para 3. This is very much a Para 3 size knife, just with a totally different blade to handle ratio, different ergonomic lines, no choke up position, but very similar in overall size to the Para 3, just not in feel or profile. How about up against the Benchmade Griptilian, or in this case the Ritter Hogue and the Hogue Deca? Alrighty. How's the action on this guy? It's good. I actually really like the access to the opening hole there. That works really well. There's also a little low profile flipper tab. It's so tiny you might miss it, but it is definitely there. You can light switch it. I think the best way to do it, given that the D10 is really good, is just to push button it. But the position of this hole, I wish they'd moved it just a little more that way. But truthfully, it's like it's an oval, right? And there's plenty of room to get in there and do the reverse flick. You can also, if you position your thumb just right, do the forward flick. What's weird is that it has lock stick, which I don't know about you guys, but I find that to be pretty uncommon for Civivi. Now, fortunately, lock stick most of the time clears itself. There are rare occasions where lock stick gets substantially worse and then clears itself. I've even had lock stick that was so bad I could barely get the knife to unlock without a tool. Then it cleared itself. Then it came back. Then it cleared itself, which is essentially the lock bar wearing over into, I guess, different terrain on the lock face. Most likely with Civivi, if you experience lock stick, it's probably going to clear itself. So that's what I would guess here. I would say it's pretty minor if I were to put it on a scale of 1 to 10. 1 being the least severe, 10 being the most severe. I'd give it like a 3. It's not very bad. So access to the liner lock is good. There's a little teeth right here. A couple of people have said that that bothers them. I don't find that it bothers me, but I can understand, I guess if you're flipping it over and over again, maybe it would bother you. It doesn't really bother me. I think it's pretty good. Runs on bearings, action is good. Typical Civivi, right? I'm not going to overly celebrate it. It's just exactly what you'd expect. Par for the course. Let's go ahead and do carry profile thickness up against the Spyderco Para 3. It is slightly thicker. It's wood scales on top of steel liners. Not bad, though. It doesn't feel like a thick knife at all. Length and height up against the PM2 and Para 3. This is a supremely easy knife to carry thanks to its very compact profile. I had no issues. I would say it's even, I mean, it feels more compact than even the Para 3, despite being slightly thicker. What do we have for materials? So we have wood, which is not my favorite. Civivi loves to show off the wood. they send me a lot of wood. That's fine. I mean, like, a lot of people enjoy wood. Okay, come on, Complex, get it together. You're a professional. No, you are a YouTube knife reviewer. Come on, there's a lot of people watching here. Civivi offers products with wood scales, micarta scales, G10. Fortunately, for people like me who would not prefer these types of scales, they have Civivi, they have the G10 and micarta options as well. But in this case, we have wood, some variation of wood, right, that's been treated and is appropriate for handle scales. And then we have 14C28N. It's also probably a good time to point out that this is a wear knives design. which will be listed, of course, when you use the link for this knife down in the description. Should list him as the designer there. But just in case you're not going to do that, there it is right there. Anyways, 14C28N steel liners, steel pocket clip, and wood scales. So slight variation between the scale types. The weight, which we don't want in terms of milliliters. Sorry about that. All good. We get to go all the way back around. There we go. Weight is coming in at 3.2 ounces, which is completely unsurprising. Honestly, pretty good ratios. You got a pretty good blade to handle ratio. Probably more heavy in terms of blade. Yeah, it's actually really close to the pivot. So this feels perfectly balanced, right? As all things should be. What does Thanos say? I can't remember. I don't know. God, that knife that he had was so stupid. I still remember that and being upset about it. Why are the blades lightning bolts? Why? Anyways, let's go ahead and do blade stock thickness because the calipers are right here and I always lose them, so we might as well do it. Probably 115. No, even thinner, 107 thousandths on there. Go ahead and do a hardware check. Get out my tools as per usual. My tools are very inexpensive and very recommendable. You can find them right down in the section of my description that talks about the tools I use on this channel. Civivi likes to do an all T8 setup usually, and that is what we have here. T8 for the body screws, even T8 for the pocket clip screws, which you should notice this pocket clip is not the typical Loch Ness Monster clip. This is a milled steel clip, which not everybody loves, but I do love it a lot more than the typical clip that we get from Civivi, which is this one right here. Boy, that is, I mean, you know, it's not really that bad, but man, it just goes right into the middle of your hand when you're gripping it. It's just, I'm so aware of it. This one, a milled clip, no, it lays flat and it's nice and rounded off at the end. So I appreciate that. That was obviously a Wear Knives thing. So thank you very much. I appreciate that. Thank you. I think that that's much better. Let's go ahead and we did the hardware check. We did the weight. Yeah, let's get into the meat and potatoes here. This is a very straightforward knife. And here's what I appreciate. This straight and open back end. Little bit of a ramp back here. So like your pinky might be sliding off a little bit, but it's not an aggressive ramp. Honestly, it's just nice and open. There's essentially one hand position. I mean, yeah, you can do this or you can do this, right? But in terms of like the hammer grip on the scales, there's no choke up spot really. You could force it up here, but I wouldn't, right? Just one spot, and that one spot is plenty comfortable. I have no issues with it. Scales are flat, chamfered down at the edges, so no zones where it feels uncomfortable. This is also what I would describe as a reverse tanto. Some people get hot sauce in their pants over me, you know, not labeling blades correctly. Here you go. Here's the blade shape. You can call it whatever you want. Octopus Tuesday high five surprise is what I like to say when I don't know or don't care what the blade shape is, but what we've got here, factually, is a flat that runs out roughly 70% the length of the blade. There's a swedge up here, and then you have a nose that drops down. For me, I don't know about you, but for me, when the blade is roughly the same length as my finger, that means it's easy to do draw cuts, which is something that I do a lot. I like being able to do shaping cuts like that. So that's nice. You also have plenty of tip. They didn't make it a cleaver for sure. So there's plenty of tip here. Which is nice because there are times where you're going to need to puncture into something. That's going to make it a little easier. There is actually a little bit of belly. It's not straight. So this is kind of nice. It's kind of the best of all worlds here, and it should be very, very easy to touch up considering it is 14C28N. I always forget how big the range is for 14C28N. Now, obviously, a lower Rockwell hardness for this stuff would be much more ideal in a fixed blade or even like a super long blade. So when I say that the range is wide, I don't mean that any part of this range is acceptable for a pocket knife with thin geometry. At this size, it needs to be about as hard as it possibly can be. So the range for 14C28N to be considered optimal in terms of heat treat is 55 to 62. Can you believe that? Obviously, at thin geometry on a knife that's not meant to be hammered or pried with, or, you know, you're not doing any chopping with it, right? Unless you're an idiot, which unfortunately there are lots of those. A pocket knife is just meant to be used to cut, like a pocket knife like this, right? I mean, sure, if it's your cold steel Formax, knock yourself out, right? If you want to demolish your fence with a cold steel Formax, I'm sure it can do it. It'll take you a while, but I'm sure you can do it. With this, it's just meant to do simple cutting tasks, right? So we want that blade to be harder if it's going to be 14C28N. Civivi likes to do 58 to 60 for a non-coated version. For their coated versions, it's going to drop the whole range by a point, so 57 to 59. That's obviously within the range. I don't think that it's optimal, though. I personally like to see 14C28N at about 59 to 61, roughly the improper industry standard of M390. Obviously, the different ranges are different depending on the composition. But 14C28N, I feel like really shines up there. And obviously, it'll do a little bit better at, like 60 to 62. But the benefit here for 14C28N is that it's very, very tough and has great edge stability to back up somewhat lackluster edge retention, right? Those two things do work together. So when you get proper geometry of a blade, you really can make good use of a knife like this in the budget territory. And really the cherry on top is being able to touch it back up, even if you don't really know anything about sharpening. If you have a belt, right, or a piece of leather or something, I mean, like, yeah, it's fairly easy to touch back up and get a working edge on it. It's also stainless. This makes the knife really, really well balanced. In terms of a pocket knife, I feel like it could be a little bit harder and still maintain that balance really, really well. Civivi, with some of their compositions, tends to be a little low. Same with, WE knives. But anyways, we're going to make this video a little bit too long. The blade shape's very, very plain. You can get black washed. You can get satin. I think even tumbled, maybe. There might even be a Damascus version. But that's pretty much it. I mean, as far as like edge thinness, it's not as thin as some Civivis, but it's still thin enough. It'll slice, it'll cut, it'll do what you expect it to do. There's no surprises here. It's a Civivi knife. No lanyard hole, who cares, right? Obviously not many people, because there's tons of companies just kind of leaving them out and you don't hear much of an uproar. I mean, some people still like lanyard holes, and if you do, then I feel bad for you, because it seems like the industry's kind of moving away from a lot of that stuff, or at least the knives that I review. But usually they put a little bar back here. This was obviously a Wear Knives design element to just not include anything. So normally with Civivi knives, we see at least the bar, which I think is the way to go. At least include something for the few people who want that on there. But, oh well, there's no lefty mounting position for the pocket clip, which is a real bummer, because I think lefty people would love to be able to use this. I'm a right-handed person. This is very easy to manipulate with my left hand, so that would have been nice. There is a stop pin located back in its traditional position. Lots of shouldering, deep shouldering. No blade play up, down, left, or right. Like I said, a little bit of lock stick. No double clutch, no pivot lash. Very smooth and consistent in here, and a perfect, really nice detent, honestly. Base price of this knife, I think the all black one is actually $56, with the, in my opinion, the ideal variant being the green micarta or G10. It's either G10 or micarta. The green version with the satin blade, which will have the slightly higher range for Rockwell hardness, is about $58. Not bad for 14C28N. Even with the range not being absolutely perfect, it's still plenty good. It's just not perfect. But at $58, I don't really want to complain too much. I think it's a great profile. I think it's a great tool. If you spend the money on it, you're probably going to be happy on it. But truth be told, this isn't a whole lot different than the bajillion other Civivi knives that are out there, right? It's just subtle variation. It's a good design, though. It's a good design, though, is what I was trying to say. Even if it is incredibly similar to literally hundreds of other knives out there. Still, if you like the way that this looks, it's a good functional tool, and it should serve you well. So it's going to go in my cheap knives I like playlist. There's really nothing else to say. Please make sure to follow me on Instagram at metal_complex. I was looking for my card. Here it is right there. And on TikTok at _metal_complex. If you enjoyed this video, leave a like. If you'd like to check out my other content, I do, of course, have lots of videos of knives that are either expensive or inexpensive that I do or don't like, so check those out. And if you enjoy all my content, go ahead and click on that Metal Complex logo right there and subscribe, because there's definitely more coming. Thanks again for watching, everybody, and have a great day.